so much. I think the big thing is we're saying open full time, 5 days a week, all services in person, everything in person. These kids, awesome, amazing special education students, all the different facets, the ones that are in special day classes, that are in regular classes, that have RSP, or whatever they call it when they pull them out, all of it should be in person, full time, 5 days a week. That's what we all need, and that's what these kids need. Um,
Amazing.
uh,
Wow. You know what? You are so right. That is, I mean, it is amazing what Kevin is doing. And Kevin, thank you so much. Okay, continue. Tell us the
so,
5 steps. How are they going to do it?
I mean, basically, these are kind of like steps to start with. So, the first one you want to do is really demand that your school board open for special education. And in California, there are special guidelines of basically opening for small cohorts or pods. A lot of other states have what they call pod stipulations. They can open with smaller classes, and the special day classes are typically 7 to 16 kids. You can open easily with a small amount of kids if your district is being kind of a pain, basically opening. I would definitely point them to whatever applicable law for California. It's the small cohort guidelines that they put out, and those guidelines have been out since August. So I'm not really sure why other schools aren't doing what Chino Valley is doing and is opening up. But this includes the mainstreaming kids, because what you can do for them also is to bring them back in small cohorts. But right now, California allows full-time school with 3 foot of distance. There is literally no reason that all kids aren't back, right? But we're specifically talking about special education right here. You should be allowing your school board morning. If that doesn't work, let's say the school board, for whatever reason, you can get 2, but you can't get that third critical one to vote for it. Then sadly, you're going to have to go to the next level. The next level, number 2, is really rallying a whole bunch of special education parents. Bring your kids out there to the district office, probably wherever they're having their board meetings. And ultimately, what you're hoping is some of the board members might come out and actually talk with you, or drive down to wherever the district office is and come talk to you and find out what your concerns are. Now, you should definitely email into the board, because right now a lot of the board meetings are not in person, and so you'll have to email into them. But ultimately, you want to get everybody. But you also want everybody to have a cohesive voice and plan. What are you asking for? You're asking for a full-time school for all of these kids, all the services, and all of the things. Now,
Okay.
if that doesn't work, then
Okay,
your next
before
level.
you go on,
Sure,
we did step 1 and step 2. I want to add this to step 2.
sure.
Many parents don't know other parents, and they don't even know how to get the other parents. And I have to say, I'm one of those parents, and I was isolated also, busy working and doing our Generation Quarantine podcast. I didn't know other parents or how to contact them, because everyone was accepting the status quo. So what I want to say now to y'all that are watching this is we have connection links to different reopen organizations in your area. So please just message us on this comment area, and we will happily get a hold of you and let you know how you can find other parents that are active, and then you can just pool your resources together, and that's going to be the next step besides the IEP. So Kevin, continue on step 3.
So I think to add on to that, the best thing to do is look for Facebook groups that are in your area and start putting little posts up there, right? So like in our area, there's like a Chino community one, and there's a Chino Hills community one. I go on there and I post that, hey, any special education parents want to really push for schools to be open. There's also dedicated ones for Autism Society or for whatever different disabilities and stuff like that. There's specific groups for that, like dad groups, mom groups, all that kind of stuff. Literally just post in every single one of them to say that you're wanting to get a bunch of parents together to really get the kids back into school. So just post everywhere. Put in there. It'll be through your Facebook Messenger. Tell them to message you. Create your own group. Create your own Facebook group. It literally takes 5 minutes to create your own Facebook group. I've literally created 30, I think, in the last year for different groups to help them out, and then just gave them admin, privileges, and then they took over. But just really, you need to get the parents together. Number 3 is really when you're going to start going and focusing more on your own child, and this is where advocates can really help you tons. I cannot stress enough that paying for an advocate, yes, it's some money, and not every parent has that money. So you have an option of basically getting your own advocate, or if you have a regional center rep, a lot of times the regional center reps can actually be those advocates for cheap or free. And then they actually have advocates in the regional centers, depending on which regional center you're part of. You have that option too. But anybody can be an advocate, right? I just like to use my advocate because she's amazing and awesome, and she's here with us today because she has such a vast amount of experience. And I literally ask her a question, and within 5 minutes, she knows the answer because she's been in 1,000 IEPs, and there's no way I can replace that knowledge, right? She's been in 1,000 different IEPs with totally different kids, totally different school districts, totally different parents, totally different teachers. She's seen a lot more. There's no way I can replace that experience, right? And so advocates have all that amazing experience. So what you really want to do, what I've learned from Elena, right, is you want to identify your child's needs. Like, what are the goals that are not being met? What are the services that cannot happen in virtually, right? So like OT, PT, how the heck do you do that through Zoom, right? You don't have the equipment at home to be able to do those activities. You don't have the games, you don't have the equipment, you don't have some of these kids don't have like a simple ball around their house, right? They're all flat, they're not going to work for what you need to do, whatever. So you need space too, and a lot of people don't have a lot of space in their houses, right? Because a lot of stuff requires you have space. But if you go to OT in a real gym, right, they have a gym with all of the equipments and stuff like that, all the services. How do you see somebody when they're writing? How do you see somebody writing through a Zoom meeting? Like, my daughter and my wife were trying to figure out how to angle the camera so that the OT could see how she was writing, and literally just gave up, right? It's just
so Kevin,
not something you can do.
Introduced that you have a daughter. Can you just tell us you are a dad, and can you just quickly say you have a child, how old, and...
Sure. So my daughter is 11 years old. She's in 6th grade. She has autism and development coordination disorder. And during the pandemic, before she went back to full-time school, she was very much struggling. And so we had to have my wife full-time next to her, or we were able to use our home ABA therapist, or actually had a family friend who was a retired special education teacher. So one of those three had to be next to her the whole time and motivating her to make sure that she was doing the work. She has a one-on-one in school, but we could not get the one-on-one to actually come to our house. This is early on in the pandemic. By the time we started the routine to get a one-on-one at home, she actually went back in person. So it was amazing, right? It was like, we really wanted a one-on-one. It was, we had the proof that we needed it and all that kind of stuff. And so luckily they quickly opened, and they literally sent me a letter in the mail. Well, you realize we just opened, so you don't have a case. And it's like, well, thank you, but why didn't you open earlier?
Okay, I want to add on point number 3 now before we move on to 4 and 5. The last sentence, and this is all going to be posted in the comments section of this podcast, so you can all see his points. He's giving it away. This is like nothing. He's an advocate. It'll be there for you. But I want to say this one real quick. Today, I had to do point number 3. I have a 13-year-old son, special needs, ADD, and very impulsive. He's a 13-year-old boy. Many 13-year-old boys are impulsive and ADD. I said to today when we had our morning meeting with me and the IEP counselor director for the charter, and I took Kevin's advice and I said, I need an emergency IEP meeting. And quickly, I just went right to that point. I said the key words. Those are the key words, everybody. I need an emergency IEP meeting for my child. Okay? Put it in writing. Email it, not text. Email. You have to have a copy of it. Make sure that you asked for it. You know the date. Maybe print it. Keep the date of when you asked. So, Kevin, let's go to points 4 and 5.
Sure. Thank you for really addressing that last one. And I mean, the big thing is you really, as a parent, you can call an IEP meeting at any time, right? You can, grab your favorite advocate, of course, and have that meeting with them also. And you should really know what you want to talk about when you go to that meeting too, right? You should really have your goals, not just my kid's having problems. You need to know what you want to address in those meetings. An advocate really helps with you figuring out what you want to add. So number 4 is hire that advocate, right? Hire that advocate, right? Find through parents or hire Elena. Like, basically you find that advocate that you trust, talk to them ahead of time, and hire them. And what they do is they give you so much knowledge of what things that are available. Because the big thing you don't know as a parent, or I didn't know as a parent, is what the heck am I supposed to ask for? Like, I know my kid's struggling, but what do I ask for? Like, do I ask for this assessment? Do I ask for that assessment? What's the right thing to ask? Like, this last meeting, I was asking for an individualized, basically plan to make her more independent. So I called it an independence plan. Well, that's not what it's called, right? But like, it's just one of those things where like us parents, we don't know. So an advocate lends all of that lens to it or whatever. And I think we'll definitely let Elena talk in a little bit to talk about what things she's seen, what things have worked for her. Number 5 is the last one that we ever want to get to, but sadly, the only reason California schools are open at all and sports is open as all is because we've hired lawyers. And we've hired lawyers as group and put together bigger lawsuits with several parents. And that's basically how California got open for schools and how California opened for youth sports was lawsuits.
And this lawyer, and one of the law firms that Kevin is talking about, his name is Scott, and Kevin probably knows the name of the law firm. They haven't taken a dime yet, and we hope to raise money for these attorneys. So when we say hire an advocate, we also mean grab an advocate. Sometimes you don't have the money for an attorney, and Kevin is going to talk a little bit more about that, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about Scott's law firm. If you know the name, right?
I don't know the name off the top of my head, but there's a parent association which is gathering donations for the lawsuits that have already happened, and they're furthering those lawsuits to try to make sure that all of California can truly open. Their focus was in San Diego with both lawsuits, but they're trying to help all right. School districts in California, and eventually they really help everybody. And right. So they're really focused on that right now, and if you can donate, that'd be great. And the big thing is, like, special education gets to open if regular schools, kids get to go back to school, right? The same thing happened with sports, right? Once they went back to school, then they were allowed to do sports. So, right. One follows the other. The big thing for Chino Valley was that once we got special education open, it opened everybody's eyes to, oh, wow, the schools are safe. Oh, wow, right. They can do this, right? And people sadly think special education kids can't follow mass right. rules and can't follow the rules and stuff like that. But to be honest, like, I was surprised. My daughter had no problem wearing the mask all day at school. I thought it was going to be a big giant fight. I thought it was going to be horrible. I really thought it. And I'm not saying there's not mask waivers. So there's kids that just can't wear masks for whatever reason. And they should definitely look in mask waivers if they need to. But I was surprised. My daughter wore it all day. They haven't had an issue with her wearing the mask or whatever. She's kind of quiet with the mask on, of course. But in general, she's able to communicate her wants, her needs, answer the questions and stuff like that. So it can be done. So we kind of proved it, that basically it could be done safely. There right. wasn't a crazy spread or any of that kind of stuff. They were able to do the services in person. There wasn't a crazy spread there. And this was actually before the teachers were vaccinated too, right? Now we have most of the teachers vaccinated, but we started back in November. There was no vaccination in November, right? For teachers and for the aides, right? And so it's just amazing, how we were able to do it magically, without the vaccines, without, right. I mean, they did have, they did some of they definitely did the protocols of checking temperature and all that kind of stuff, right? But it wasn't the full force of California changing the law in January to make it like crazy to open schools, right?